Looking back at some of my most recent videos, they were mostly about racing games, but mainly a lot of doom and gloom. Bad game updates, cancelled features, and devs going bust were the three main topics in the last 3 weeks of my videos. Plus, they were all racing game videos. And as you may know, on the Ferrari Guy, we share a variety of different content, with cars real or fake. And in case you didn't know, the channel is also Irish. So I thought for this week's video I would show you all something that will definitely get the Irish car fans' hearts racing. So in today's video, I'll be going through the history of everyone's favourite tax, the vehicle registration tax, also known as VRT. So when exactly did all this evil begin? First, we must go back to the 1990s. In 1993, the European Union has just launched a single market. Barriers are falling, trade is now free. In every other EU country, car prices are beginning to plummet because import duties are now essentially illegal. But in Dublin, the Department of Finance, run by future Taoiseach, country destroyer and fashion criminal Bertie Ahern, he is stuck with a massive headache. You see, before this, with the import duties in place, they were making millions off you taxing your car, and they got addicted. So to appease these new import laws, they would perform a legal magic trick. They don't call it an import tax anymore. Instead, they call it the vehicle registration tax, essentially moving the tax's goalposts. They tell the EU it's not a tax on the car coming into the country. It's just a fee for putting a number plate on your car's bumper. No big deal. But this was nothing more than a big fat lie, born of desperation to keep the money going. Even after we signed up for free trade, it is quite literally a tax on a tax. So how does this tax get calculated then? Well, most taxes are simple. You buy a shirt for €20, you pay your 23% VAT, you feel shafted, you eventually forget about it, and then you go on your merry way. However, VRT doesn't care about what you actually paid. Instead, it uses a ghost number called the open market selling price. Here, revenue doesn't look at your receipt from a dealer in London or Tokyo. They look at their own internal databases and decide how much they think your car is worth in Ireland, a market that has already been artificially inflated by VRT. Sometimes these prices are in fact found on cars like yours are for sale. However, in most times, it's just a wild guess that they pull out of their backsides, resulting in some absolutely outrageous calculations. This means that if you find a bargain abroad for €10,000, but revenue decides that it's worth €20,000, you have to pay the tax on the €20,000 car. It is the only tax in the world where the government tells you how much you spent, even when you didn't. Throughout the 2000s, importing cars into Ireland has been very popular, but it reached new highs after 2008 with the arrival of new low-emissions diesels. These cars had very low VRT, so that meant that you could get yourself a nice BMW 320d M Sport in that blue you like for pennies. However, this got so popular that the government weren't making as much money as they would like to, but sadly, the Dieselgate scandal changed everything, and it gave the Green Party and the government the reason they needed to clamp down on this. So in 2020, they introduced the NOx levy on top of VRT. If you can't provide the exact nitrogen oxide levels of an older car, they will slap you with a default charge, up to €4,850 for a diesel. So please, if you're bringing in a diesel, make sure you know what the NOx emissions is. They encourage you to buy the technology, and now they've taxed you into poverty for owning it. Because the British public can't make the right decision ever, Brexit occurred in 2016, but it didn't come into effect until 2021. So when that occurred, your dream UK import is now hit with a 10% customs duty, 23% VAT, VRT of course, and finally NOx, which made buying a car from the UK basically unaffordable, which as a result jacked the prices of cars over here in Ireland, meaning that the car you were originally looking for is now suddenly thousands of euros more expensive. Meanwhile, to encourage EV sales, new EVs in 2020 were hit with a €5,000 relief to make them more affordable, and this has worked well. Plug-in hybrids were also hit with a €2,500 relief. Now fast forward to 2026 and that €5,000 relief for EVs is being strictly tampered, so if your EV costs over $50,000, you get zero. And if you own a plug-in hybrid, you also get zero, as that charge was taken away a few years ago. They want you to get into an EV, but they've realised that if everyone drives an EV, that €1 billion or so they make in VRT disappears, so the electric revolution is now being taxed just like the petrol one. So out of everything that I've shown you, you're going to be shocked to find out that this isn't even the worst of it. The worst part of this tax is the goddamn calculator. This ancient webpage is the bane of every car lover's existence. It delivers ancient information, has less than half of what the cars you see on the road every day, but it somehow has brands you've never heard of. It also has different models that aren't based on actual cars, but rather the trim level of what one car is. But worst of all, it doesn't even have a car that you actually want. So if you wanted a BMW M4, a Toyota Supra, or a Mitsubishi Evo, you are left completely in the dark. You can get a statistical code to calculate the VRT beforehand, but they are about as unlikely to find as Sabrina Carpenter is to respond to your DMs. Meaning that you've only got one option. You have to do it manually. So what does that mean then? So to do this, first you have to buy the car, ship it in, and book an appointment. So your mercy is in the hands of whoever's working the desk that day, meaning that two cars could be identical, but they could have completely different VRT prices. One could have €7,000, the other could have €33,000 for some absolute fucking reason. So you're basically getting rubber gloved, no matter what. So why do car people, and normal people in fact, call VRT evil? It's a double taxation. You're paying VRT on top of VAT. And as a result, these high taxations have completely aged our fleet. And worst of all, when the government starts complaining that our cars are too old, they basically have the power to prevent this, encourage people to buy new cars. But for some reason, VRT remains, and because it adds up to €5,000 to €15,000 on the price of a car, don't get me started on the high performance ones, the Irish fleet is much older than the European average. Over 10 years old in fact. We are driving older, less safe and much more polluting cars because we simply cannot afford to buy new ones. Cars are a barrier of life in Ireland. Where public transport is, unless you live in a big city, is basically crap. A car isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's how we go to work and it's how we live. By taxing the car at 41% of its value if you have a cool car, the state is taxing your ability to earn a living. But for me, the worst thing of all isn't the idea of it. I don't think it's a bad idea having to pay a charge to import a car. I think it genuinely makes sense and it does generate revenue for the government. But the problem is its practice. The overcomplicated calculations, the game of chance prices, and the rates based on fictional fees has made VRT one of the most evil, disgraceful, and absolutely vile taxes that we, the Irish motorists, have to pay. It's why most cars in Ireland, you see, are not really that important. That's why some people get excited when they see a bang average BMW M4 or even the new M5, which thanks to being a plug-in hybrid has quite low VRT, so we're seeing a lot more of them. It does show that the boom may be back, or it's just people finally taking advantage of this disgrace of a tax. So to conclude, VRT isn't about the environment, it never was. It started as a way to bypass EU laws in 1993 and it continues today as a multi-billion euro habit the government refuses to kick. Ireland is the only place where buying a car feels less like a milestone and more like a mugging, and I don't see this ever changing. So what do you think? Have I just ruined your week? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, which I highly doubt you did, please remember to like, share and subscribe. And finally, fuck revenue. But also, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you all very soon.